Hey people, Fernando, welcome to another video here for the Modern Survivalists. Stay for this video. I promise you'll learn something you didn't know that will really change the way in which you view things. Look, this is going to be a video about understanding the news, understanding what different media outlets want you to believe based on their own agenda. This is something that you probably already understand, but maybe you don't quite get up to the point in which how this really works. You're probably familiar with fake news. Donald Trump popularized the word fake news. So immediately, whenever you see anything that is suspicious, maybe you don't like, and if you're more conservative, you immediately point out, hey, fake news. Now, if you're on the other side of the political spectrum, you're going to be calling the same thing misinformation. Oh, this is misinformation from the far right, or this is misinformation from the Trump voters or whatnot. This is the way the world has been, since the dawn of time. Basically, the media that you read, even if it was just a newspaper, it is gonna be aligned with certain specific interests. So let's go through this process and let's see if we can detect how this plays out. The question I always ask myself whenever I see anything is, what is it that they want me to believe? What is it that they want me to think as I'm reading this? Rather than just thinking, oh, this is the news. This is what just happened right now. It may well be the case. There are events that are really unfolding. The way in which you present them, or the way in which you use a different editorial title, or the way in which you don't even talk about it says a lot as well. So the first thing I have here is one of the more debatable, one of the more hot topics these days, which is Russia. What is it that they're saying in Russia right now? Let's make my little window here a little bit smaller. And RT News. This is straight out of the Russian government. So whatever interest RT is representing is most likely going to be favorable to Russia. Something happened, it's going to be presented in a light so as to make Russia look good, make whatever enemies or adversaries they have look bad. So one of the other things to keep in mind is what is presented above the fold. Above the fold is what you have in the first screen. When you start scrolling down, that's no longer above the fold. So the main thing they want you to think about right now is the sister of Kim Jong-un insults South Korea over sanctions. Okay, is that real? Has that happened? I honestly don't know. I assume it could be. It doesn't sound anything too controversial. But notice one thing. Notice what's around this. So, sister of Kim Jong insulting South Korea. All right. Switzerland rules on arms deliveries to Russia and Ukraine. Okay. China sets record for daily COVID. Brazil, Bolsonaro fined for challenging elections. All right. Moscow explains its Ukraine objectives to UN. You barely see any actual news regarding the ongoing war that you have right now in Ukraine. Shouldn't that be like the main headline instead of the sister of a dictator in North Korea insulting South Korea? Is that really more newsworthy than the ongoing war in which you are involved right now? I don't know. Depends on the way you look at it, but it's all like smaller battlefield. Won't decide Russia-Ukraine conflict. Okay, this is one of the things in which you're already led to think a certain way. So the battlefield won't decide the war? That is weird, to say the least. Ukraine halts Russian oil transit to Europe, to European Union. Why China is giving Britain the cold shoulder. So little things like this, like China is giving Britain the cold shoulder. So there's a tension and a disconnection and unfavorable relations between Britain and China. This shows you that Russia is usually going to be giving you more favorable news, of course, of themselves and their allies. UK is not, something they consider an ally of theirs. Turkish air operation, just the beginning, says Erdogan. So yes, these would be the more friendly. Very interesting to see that they have a bit of a change of heart in their opinion regarding Bolsonaro in Brazil. The former president of Brazil is no longer useful for the regime in Russia. So even though they used to be pretty close, Brazil's Bolsonaro fined for challenging election results. This is a little subtle headline that is negative towards Bolsonaro. Okay, so Bolsonaro is being fined because he did something wrong. That's what the average person would think. Why is that? Well, because the new president of Brazil, Lula da Silva, is even more cozy with Russia, not only just in a way of leadership or economics like probably Bolsonaro was more interested with regarding his proximity with Russia. Lula is a true socialist left-wing believer. Lula is more of a Venezuela, Kirchner in Argentina kind of left-wing socialist, more of the Soviet Marxist kind of socialist. Bolsonaro was close to Putin in terms of beneficial economic links, and his approach to COVID was closer to him. Bolsonaro was not exactly a savvy politician, hence how he ended up losing now in Brazil. So even though he was called the Trumps of the tropics, well, things went a certain way. But let's keep on analyzing the way in which news is presented. Germany to end largest African mission. Biden's outgoing COVID chief offers final advice. Tony Fauci being shown here. And so it goes. But very interesting to see that my main take of RT News is they're not talking about the war in which they're involved in much at all, and they're not showing it with pictures. Pictures are important. Pictures are often all that people care about these days. They just look at something and say, oh, nothing is going on. Asian lady, something in Switzerland, Chinese dude, why is China giving Britain the cold shoulder? UK failed in Afghanistan watchdog. So UK, 2 negative articles regarding UK. It's interesting that they're taking a few more swings at UK. Basically, Europe bad, UK bad, United States bad, Russia good. We don't talk about the war we're losing. Moving on. So let's move on to the main media outlet that is the way in which the United States government wants you to think. Whenever I look at CNN News, this is, at least for me, this is the equivalent of the official U.S. government media outlet. Just like that is RT News for Russia, CNN is the United States RT News. What is the main thing that they want us to think about? Well, of course, the war in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine has been a disaster for the people in Ukraine that has suffered the invasion. It's been a military disaster for Russia themselves. It's been a huge success for the United States. Whenever people complain about how much money they're giving Ukraine, I completely understand from that moment on that they have no idea how beneficial each cent being spent in this war is for the United States in all aspects. Economically, we've said it many times, the U.S. economy runs on war. Anyone that knows anything about U.S. economy should understand that right away. That's why they have by far the largest military expense of any developed country in the planet. Besides that, it's been strategically and military success from the start. You're giving money to a country that is fighting your greatest opponent, your greatest enemy in the world, maybe along there with China, but the one that's been always more outspoken about how they're more interested or more open to a hot war with the United States. It's always been Russia. That hasn't changed now. You have them being beaten by Ukraine with your weapons without loss of U.S. soldiers. Having a war in which the United States is directly involved in, as you've seen in Middle East for a number of years, that always has the huge political backlash of United States soldiers dying in those wars. So you still do those because politics, economics, but this is perfect because you don't have that, you don't take that hit. You are degrading and diminishing the military of your greatest opponent without losing a single soldier in the eyes of the public. This is, I mean, the guys were giggling. The CIA guys, when they were giving their briefing, they were literally giggling about, yeah, this is fantastic for us. We love this. Of course they do. I mean, well, we cannot spend a lot more time on this because the video would go forever. Let's move on to our thing. So, main thing, war in Ukraine. China COVID case hit record as dissent grows over tough restrictions. So, yeah, taking a swing there at China. Of course, the United States will take a swing at China. Is this real or not? Are things bad in China? I have no doubt that things are pretty bad in China. I wouldn't like to be living in China myself, but I understand that this is presented in a certain way because of the interests of the U.S. government. Virginia mass shooter was a manager of Walmart. Oh yeah, of course, a mass shooter. Now, take a look at this, when it's being updated. Well, Brazilian court rejects election challenge from outgoing President Jair Bolsonaro. Even CNN is more favorable towards former Trump of the tropics Bolsonaro than RT News. That just shows how aligned, how close Russia will be now with Lula. Lula is just like Putin. Lula is Putin in South America. He's a die-hard Marxist operating right now as president of Brazil. So this goes on, and again, why Putin would want a truce and so on. Russia's State Duma passes amendment to LGBT propaganda. You have more LGBT, the woke agenda, the LGBT agenda is very strong in the media. It always is. You never miss. Sometimes sometimes it's below the fold, right? Sometimes you have to go a little bit deeper, but it is always there. Somewhere you will have some woke agenda headline. Now, let's go to the favorite of the conservatives in the United States, which is Fox News. What is it that Fox News is telling you? What is it that Fox News wants you to focus on? Well, Twitter. Why is this so important? I don't know. I mean, it is news. Certainly, is it more important than the ongoing war, the economic crisis? Is it more important than everything else? Well, Fox News. What is it that Fox News wants you to think? Who owns Fox News? I've done videos about this before. The people that own, in paper and documents, the owners of Fox News are very much the same as the owners of CNN. It is still the elite that owns Fox News. They own CNN, they own Fox News, they own the BBC that is in itself owned by the British government, which is owned by the elite and the monarchy. So it's basically all the same. This is what you would encompass all in like legacy media, okay? But what is the main focus of Fox News? Division, polarizing things, catering to some degree to conservatives in the United States, but at the same time, you have every once in a while LGBT propaganda hit pieces like we've seen before in the channel. I've shown you how that's done. At the same time, you have Dan Crenshaw. Do you like Dan Crenshaw? Probably not, but Fox News is catering for that audience. Do you like Comrade Tulsi Gabbard? Probably not. Probably you do. There's a lot of focus. There's a lot of investment being placed by the so-called right-wing media into promoting Tulsi Gabbard. You see many YouTube channels, conservative YouTube channels, now apparently forgetting that this woman is a communist. This woman is not only financed by the Russian government through their agents. Look more on that on your own. Just Google it, you will find it. Not only that, she is a supporter of Joe Biden up until the moment in which he was elected. Tulsi Gabbard is one of these World Economic Forum's young leaders, right? Which is kind of not always all that telling, because the Klaus Schwab election of who is a young leader or not is purely one-sided. He just points fingers and says, this is a young leader. Now, it is not always the case that the young leader themselves acknowledge and reply to that, which is what Tulsi Gabbard did. She thanked the World Economic Forum, Davos, for electing her, giving her the honor of being a young globalist leader. So always keep that in mind. Even now she's apparently conservative, well, people have a very short memory and they forget who Tulsi Gabbard is. She's a commie, anti-gun agent operating now, pretending to be conservative. Well, we see more of that in a number of places here, probably here as well. Let's see how these things unfold. But right now, you should be focusing on Twitter, Elon Musk, how he's upsetting and ruffling the feathers on the left. Anyway, interesting thing. Now, the little thing you probably haven't considered is the alternative media, the one you really go for, because these guys are saying it as it is. Zero Hedge. I've been in Zero Hedge myself several times. Many times, Zero Hedge had picked up articles that I've written for my blog, which is, back in the day when I kept up with my blog, instead of moving to video format, Zero Hedge would often pick up anything that was economic crisis related, economic crash related, articles regarding economic problems around the world, but especially economic problems related to the United States. Anything that I talked regarding similarities between Argentina and the United States, especially stuff that I've addressed in Surviving the Economic Collapse. Many articles written regarding that, they pick it up and they put it in their website. Why? Because it serves their interest. The idea of, the economy is crashing. What? The economy is bad in the United States. The economy is bad in the West. Yeah, let's put that. And by the way, before I forget, Surviving the Economic Collapse. You want to get my book, giving everything going on, street survival skills, and bugging out and relocating. All of these available in the links below. And by the way, if you have a minute and you can leave a review in Amazon for any of my books, that is much appreciated. Let's go on with what is it that Zero Hedge wants us to think. Well, they want us to look at Twitter. Anti-Twitter advertisers have been underperforming the market for months. Here is your chance to short them. Okay, Hall of Outrage after New York Times confirms SBF to speak alongside Yellen. So the Zelensky Ukraine connection with FTX, which is completely fabricated. There's nothing there to it. And if you read this, they went from saying that it was money being sent and there's some scam going on there. Now they're just saying that confirms to speak alongside. So you speak along with someone else. Interesting how they don't point out that whenever Putin speaks in Davos, there's no connection there. I don't know. But the idea that you are connecting these two, or the fear of fear itself, the gripping truth out of Ukraine. And it goes on and on and on. Why is it Pope fires entire leadership from global Catholic charity amid harassment allegations? Why is it that they want us to think an army with and it goes on. But one of the things that was very interesting, and I noticed that right away, why is it that Zero Hedge is, well, not only promoting anything that shows not only division but problems, economic problems, the anti-gun agenda in the United States, which is very much real, right? But it's something negative nonetheless. Economic problems, like the stuff I talk about, yes, very much real. But why is it that they talk always about that stuff that has that divisive, negative impact to the West and the United States? Why is it that they have this anti-Ukraine deal thing going on? Well, let's look it up. It just takes a couple seconds. We go into Zero Hedge. Who is? It's a far right. Okay, far right. I'm far right according to many of the commies, so it should speak to me. It's libertarian. I have freedom as my core foundational belief, so this should be speaking to me. Okay, who's the founder of Zero Hedge? The founder and main editor is Daniel Zanvisky. Okay, that's nice. Who is this young man? This entrepreneur, far-right libertarian? Well, he is the son of Krasimir Ivanrember. I cannot even say the name, but this is the guy, this is the father of the owner of Zero Hedge. So you can basically assume that these two, father and son, basically same thing. Probably the money that is financing and finance Zero Hedge to begin with is coming from this man that used to be a Soviet operator in Bulgaria. He's a former minister of internal affairs of some sort from Bulgaria. Graduated, and so it goes on. But anyway, he is a former Soviet Bulgarian official, right? Which is interesting because this man is still active and he has his own media outlet, which is this one, Strogo Sekrenko, which is a very interesting website that you probably should visit and check it out because it is pure Russian anti-West propaganda. It is worse than RT News. So the father of the owner of Zero Hedge is a Russian propagandist, former Soviet, worker. It's a former Soviet minister from Bulgaria from back in the day. So they very much have a pro-Russia, anti-West agenda, and it is no doubt why they promote division and they focus mostly on what is considered by the left as far-right agenda. Is it far-right? I mean, they're not even right at all. They just want to promote this idea of how bad things are. Now, is it true that many of the things that they're talking about are very much true? Yes. I mean, my articles, I have no connection with them. My articles would be here, and, I have no pro-Russian interest. But I know that when you read certain things regarding potential economic problems in the West, it is something that will create division if you present it along with other news, right? Did the Pope fire entire leadership from Global Catholic Charity? Yeah, I probably did. I don't see how they could fabricate a headline like this. I mean, not surprised by anything at all, but I wouldn't assume this is fabricated. Is this just showing conflict within a traditional Catholic institution that is a foundation of the West? Of course. So even if I like commie Pope as much as I like Perón himself, and that's something that I feel a certain way about commie Pope that is not very favorable. I do understand what they're doing when they're presenting this news. Okay, guys, do you see how often we are misled? You have to do these things. Who's the owner of the media outlet? What is it representing? What is it that they want me to believe? And I'm not saying don't read it. Read them all, like I just did. This is, for me, typical. I check them all, see what is it that, for example, DW.com. This is Germany's state media. And what is it? The main thing, the thing that they have above the fold: Russian airstrikes on Ukraine are state terrorism. Of course, for Germany, the main concern, and it's a true, legitimate, and understandable main concern, is the war that you have right next door. The war you have going on in Europe that is the greatest threat for pretty much all European nations, especially for Germany, that's even closer than some other countries that are a bit further off. But yeah, this is a big concern. This is something they want you to put your eyes on, and it is basically what it's addressing anything that you have here. I mean, you have a little bit of the FIFA World Cup, war in Ukraine, energy crisis, right? So the same energy crisis that you would read about being presented in a certain way in Russia media, here is presented in a different way for sure. Even before I even read it, I know that's going to be presented in a more German, somewhat more pro-EU way. In 2021, a rebound from the economic slowdown during the COVID pandemic prompted a widespread energy shortage. Russia's invasion of Ukraine made things worse, driving up fuel prices across the globe, and it so goes on. I usually go and check DW because even in stuff that is like unfavorable like this, they still have a pretty German attitude towards it. So they're not great at the manipulation of of some of the finer things. They still have their own editorial lines, which are still quite obvious. Of course, here, who is it that they're blaming for the energy crisis instead of blaming themselves? Like, why is it that you fell for all the green energy bullshit, weakening your own strategic interests by depending more on Russian oil, even though we understand the economic benefits and why you did that? Well, instead of blaming yourselves, yeah, you do blame Russia, which is, of course, bearing quite a bit of responsibility. Energy crisis, France bets on floating offshore wind energy. Yeah, good luck with that. Why Germany can't break up with nuclear energy? Well, because maybe they shouldn't have even tried to begin with. Folks, anyway, you understand this? You see my point? I hope you did. And I hope you now see news with a different lens. See you in our next video.